Welcome back to Sox Machine Live, and Jerry DiPoto made some headlines with his postseason press conference, and this is what he had to say when asked about if this season was a success for the Seattle Mariners. And Jerry DiPoto said, quote, "If what you're doing is focusing year to year on what do we have to do to win the World Series this year, you might be one of the teams that's laying in the mud and can't get up for another decade. So we're actually doing the fan base a favor and asking for their patience to win the World Series while we continue to build a sustainably good roster." Now, that's what Jerry DiPoto said, and boy, that made some Seattle Mariners fans angry because DiPoto would add on that his goal over a decade is to have a winning percentage of 540, so winning 54% of the games over a decade. Now, as two people who cover the Chicago White Sox, Jim, I would love for the White Sox to have that type of success. They're not even close to winning 54% of the games, but it has generated a lot of conversation, especially on social media and those that cover baseball, on what are the true intentions of baseball general managers, because isn't that their job? Isn't their job supposed to build a roster that could win a championship year in, year out? So, using DiPoto's goal of a 540 winning percentage, a few more visuals here for those that are watching on YouTube, for those that are listening to the audio version of the podcast, I'll give you the play-by-play. So the first graph that I'm bringing up is the American League Central winning percentage, and this is from the 2012 to the 2023 season. And what the records, the winning percentages are for each place in the division, all the way from the division winner to last place, fifth place, and what that has been over the last 12 seasons, including the shortened 2020 season. And as you can see, for those that are watching with the DiPoto goal, most of the time, if you have a 540 winning percentage, you're in second place in the American League Central. And when you look at the American League wild card, since the wild card has expanded, now we have 6 teams. When you look at the wild card, more times than not, you're not going to make the playoffs via the wild card with a 540 winning percentage, which comes out to be about 88 wins. So for the American League Central, from 2012 to 2023, the average wins by place for the division, the average division winner has won 94 games in the American League Central since 2012. Second place has been 85 wins. So if you're averaging 87 to 88 wins per season, you're going to be finishing second place in the American League Central. Third place, for those interested, is 79 wins. Fourth place is usually 68 wins. Last place, the average has been 63 wins in the American League Central. And continuing this, looking at the DiPoto goal results since 2014 to 2023, so the last 10 seasons, if Jerry DiPoto was a GM and he was able to achieve this consistent winning percentage of winning 54% of the time, would have won the American League Central this year over the Minnesota Twins by a game, and would have made the postseason in 2022, and would have made the postseason from 2014 through 2017. But you would have missed the postseason 4 straight years from 2018 to 2021, and many teams outside of the White Sox would probably fire you as general manager if you missed the postseason 4 straight times, if that was the expectation from ownership. So from a White Sox perspective, when I'm looking at this chart of like the last 10 years and being able to say, wow, if the White Sox had a 540 winning percentage, Jim, they would have made the playoffs with this format 6 years. Like out of the next 10 years, the White Sox would make the playoffs 6 of those years. We would take that in a heartbeat, Jim. Mm-hmm. In a heartbeat. So I get what Jerry DiPoto is saying, but from a Seattle Mariners fan base perspective, that's just so hungry for postseason success. And for a lot of fan bases around Major League Baseball, think like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Braves that have had this type of sustained success or better, scratching their head and being like 540 winning percentage, that's not good enough. Like, what do you make of what Jerry DiPoto said? And is this applicable? And do you think this is a shared sentiment amongst many of the MLB GMs?
I think it makes sense in the big picture, I think for like maybe an owner, that makes sense to say like, a 540 winning percentage over 10 years, because like baseball is a zero-sum game. So that means like if half the teams are winning at a 540 clip, half the teams are winning at a 460 clip. And so you'd rather be the 540 team than the 460 team. And that's usually okay. The problem with a GM saying it or president of baseball operations is like running into the same problem that we ran into with Rick Hahn, prioritizing flexibility and saying like, well, we can't spend on Bryce Harper, we can't spend on Manny Machado because that would like ruin our financial flexibility. And we want to build a sustainable winner. And like Hahn didn't do that, didn't use his flexibility. You realize it's just an excuse not to spend money. And sure enough, like they're not even around to be even halfway into Bryce Harper's contract. Like they were so worried about like what it'd be like in year 10, and they didn't even get there because thankfully Reinsdorf pulled the plug on him. But that's, that's, I think part of it is just GM shouldn't look at that big of a picture. Like GM shouldn't be worried about 10-year outlook for their product. They should be worried about like 5 years.
Yeah.
And depending on like when they get there, maybe 5 years is too much. Like if you are like, say Jerry DiPoto's fired and you're given the keys to the Mariners, you're not saying 540, you're saying like 580, 600. You're looking at that team saying, we're on the doorstep of being great. Let's make this team great and let's shoot for 600. And then like, say if you're the White Sox, if you're taking over from Chris Getz, you're like 400 would be a dream basically. Then, it might not make sense to try to get to the World Series as fast as possible. When you're dealing with that size of a mess, it might take 2 or 3 years to untangle, and then you'll see what the best road forward is and like when to push and what areas to push with. So like, that's, I think, what the problem is. It makes sense from a certain perspective, but like, I don't want my GM talking in 10-year increments because that's terrible for the fans. Like they shouldn't be so comfortable as to say, I need to wait until 2030 to really understand how my vision's going. Like the results should be a lot sooner. Like Dave Dombrowski, like he's been, and we just saw in the comments here from Asner saying Dave Dombrowski nods with enthusiasm. Like, yeah, he pushes the gas pedal when he sees an opportunity. And if it doesn't work, like he accepts his firing and moves on to the next team that really wants somebody like him to press on the gas pedal. And John Middleton happens to be an owner with the Phillies who doesn't really care about profit margins and is more worried about the big picture of like having some championships to hang his hat on and probably franchise value to go along with that, to say like, if I turn a profit, nobody cares. And so like, that's the perfect match of a team that has the, talent on hand to go for it, a general manager who knows how to go for it, and a forgiving owner who says like, if it doesn't go perfectly the first time, let's keep pushing. And sure enough, like even last couple of years, firing Girardi and then rallying from that and having the lackluster first half with Trey Turner not being great, and all of a sudden Trey Turner's invincible, and now they look like as tough as any team in the postseason right now. So I think that's what every fan of a contending team wants to see, is when that opportunity is there, push for the World Series. And nobody's gonna be thanking Jerry DiPoto for worrying about the team's state in 2029 because of chances he didn't take with a perfectly good roster that somebody like Cal Raleigh wants additions to in order to try to strengthen the team against very venerable opponents in the American League and even in their own division, with the Rangers doing that push with premium talent. So yeah, I mean, like, it seemed more of a speech to the owners and the fans, but to say like, fans should be thanking me is just very tone deaf. And if you're DiPoto, and you've been probably more good than bad for that franchise, although he makes so many trades, it's hard to know like if he was like a little less active, whether like the team would have come together sooner, that like, maybe he'd be in okay standing. If he just did some bland fan-sided speak and say, we're gonna make additions and we want to make sure that we don't ruin our core, but like if we find opportunity, we'll push. And everybody would have shrugged off and realized he said nothing. But to have that kind of that's, I think, where Hahn started to lose people, is when like the smugness and the smarm turned up in place of actual accomplishments. Pedro Grifol, same thing. Like when he was getting smarmy and like, what have you done? And I think DiPoto, like, he hasn't accomplished enough to get real smug and entitled with that fan base that just wants to see more from that ownership group.
Yeah, I mean, they missed the postseason.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been to one postseason in the last 20 years. And Timmy, who's been watching along, thank you, on the live stream, great comment. DiPoto won a 54% winning percentage over 10 years. Given what they've done over the past 8 seasons, they'd be winning nearly 100 games next year and the year after to come close to that goal. I think the timing is odd, but I enjoy the discourse. Like, as a general manager and even ownership, is a 540 winning percentage good enough? And even in the dismal American League Central, it's really not a high enough bar. Like, I feel like in the American League right now, the bar should be, we should build a team to win 90 games every year. And if we can win 90 games every single season, we're going to give ourselves a chance of reaching the postseason, whether that's a division title. And as I already displayed as far as the visual for those watching the video, sometimes you win the division with 90 wins in the American League Central. More times than not, you don't. But you could get one of those 3 wild card spots now with the expanded postseason. And getting into the postseason means postseason revenue, and that helps with the bottom line. So even if ownership like Jerry Reinsdorf wants to finish in second place every year because he feels like he needs to continue dragging out a carrot in front of the White Sox fan base when they're like waiting for a grandpa to go to retirement home and somebody else run the organization, when you got people like Reinsdorf that want to aim for second place, I think it's not 87 or 88 wins, and maybe I'm nitpicking here. It's not a 540 winning percentage here, Jerry DiPoto. It's more like a 550. It's like a 55.5% winning percentage. I think you got to try to win 90 games every year in the American League if you have serious aspirations of reaching the postseason every single year. And if you're one of those guys that's like, listen, the postseason is a crapshoot, Jim. Random things happen. Maybe my team, an offensive juggernaut, wins 99 games this year, but they score 1 run in 2 games. There's not much I could do as a GM at that point. I built a great team that won 99 games. They just didn't do anything in the postseason. Even if you still believe in that, you should, as a GM, you should still try to be making the postseason. And I think in the American League, 90 wins is the target.
Yeah, I thinking about like 540 over 10 years, I think, it makes a little bit of sense just because like it's hard to go like more than a standard deviation above 540 winning games. Like Baltimore had a 623 winning percentage at the very top of the American League. At the bottom, Oakland had a 309 winning percentage. Like you can easily sink your winning percentage over a 10-year frame with 1 bad year or 2 bad years. It's really hard to like push it out of range of a bad year with like a great year. Like you're basically talking like 80 points above a 540 winning percentage for like a year everybody would consider a massive success, over like a 150 point drop for a year everybody would consider like an equal failure. So like I get that. It's just a terrible rallying cry. Like nobody cares about winning percentage. Like, everybody cares about wins and preferably round numbers. People want to say 90 wins, 95 wins, 100 wins. And 95 is not round, but it's number of digits on most people's hands. People count in 5s. Like that's, I think, what people rally around and gravitate towards. Saying like 540, you don't see like fans go like 540 and then like a 2-game winning streak is just like, okay, we're back to 527 or whatever. Like it's just, that's, I think why it's so tone deaf is that it's using a metric for success nobody uses. Fans certainly don't use in their just everyday conversations about whether a team is doing what it should or not. And that's why like, it's just, he's speaking the language nobody else is. Maybe the front office sees it. Maybe fellow general managers see it. And it's very much like a party line for what Seattle's owners want to say or what other GMs want the measuring stick to be, or at least, GMs of teams that are like worried about arbitrage and, maximizing opportunities versus like, shoving a window open or just, brute forcing it the way that Dombrowski does. So that's why like, it's so dumb. Like, it's just a dumb conversation because like, it just prioritizes what fans don't. And unless it just helped him get like a 2-year extension or something like that on his contract from, maybe it makes sense personally for him, but like in terms of relating to the fan base, it absolutely doesn't.
No. And again, that Seattle fan base is hungry for more. They got a taste last year. They only got one home game, I believe, in the postseason, despite winning the wild card, which they won that in Toronto last year. Yeah, so they only had one win. They only had one game in Seattle, and they got swept by the Houston Astros. They would like more postseason success. Yeah, a 540 winning percentage over the next decade for White Sox baseball would be wonderful. I think it would keep up interest in White Sox baseball a lot more than what we are starting to see in season numbers. Major League Baseball raving about the best attendance in years across teams. And then there's the White Sox, who averaged fewer than 4,000 fans per game, one of the biggest drops in Major League Baseball. Look at our local TV ratings, everyone. Except don't look at the White Sox local TV rating. They dropped 41%, which is a drastic change, by the way. And I think that will have huge ramifications in the White Sox negotiations with NBC Sports and Xfinity on what happens after the 2024 season. Because, again, that's the last year of the TV contract deal. So,
yeah.
I would love the White Sox to have that type of success, Jim. But if I'm a general manager, I think if I was talking to fans right now, I wouldn't mention a 540 winning percentage. I would say, listen, our goal every single year is to win 90 plus games, because that is a total that I believe can get us into the postseason, to give us a chance to win a championship. And that's what we're going to build towards. This year, we didn't hit that goal, and that's why we're sitting at home instead of in the postseason. And I think fans would be like, okay, yeah, I buy into your thinking. I'm still on your side. Find a way, Jerry. Make some moves. Find a way to win 90 games next year and get us back into the postseason. But I think you are right. No one is buying what DiPoto is trying to sell right now.